Right, we got a bit of duology going on today. This time we're looking back at Mario after his success of the first game on the NES back in the mid-80s. Not only was it a great game, and not only it helped the sell of the NES, it actually helped the video game market put back on the map after the success of Donkey Kong in the arcades. Now they go on and release the likes of Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and even re-release Donkey Kong so that people can play at home all the time, instead of constantly putting change in the machine, be it on the first try. Anyway, they began working on a sequel under the same formula. Now that game has been released a year later, but unfortunately it was only released in Japan and never got a release in the Western market. Not until the Game Boy Color ported Super Mario Bros. Deluxe that you can actually unlock the game by scoring 300,000 points, which I think you can only do in one level in the original mode. You get that and you unlock Super Mario Bros. For super players. But in a couple of years after the original Super Mario Bros., Nintendo actually released Super Mario Bros. 2. Almost play exactly nothing like the original. So what's going on here? What happened? Well, that's why I'm here to explain to you guys, and should I recommend both these games or not at all? But this is going to be a ride. Okay, so we have two versions of Super Mario Bros. 2 here. So what's the deal here? Well, let's start from the beginning. After the success of Super Mario Bros., Nintendo followed up with other titles released for the system, as I mentioned, like Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Ice Climbers, Kid Icarus, etc. So director Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to make a sequel to Super Mario Bros. With what players are more familiar with. So Nintendo has different development departments known as Nintendo Research and Development, or Nintendo R&D abbreviated. So Nintendo has different studios to work on different games, so Miyamoto, by that time, would not have the time to develop games by himself, as he has his hands full with other titles. So he leaves it to another development department known as Nintendo R&D 4, and yeah, they do have different names in their different departments, but I won't name them just to waste your time. So the sequel was delegated to its predecessor's assistant director, Takashi Tezuka, for his director debut. So with Miyamoto's help, and the Nintendo R&D 4 team are to make a sequel with the same engine, as well as using some of the same levels of the original Super Mario Bros. For the arcade. So Nintendo released Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Famicom Disc System on June 1986. There was plans to release this game into the Western market, but people from Nintendo of America playtested this game, but it was deemed to be too difficult for Western players, and so Nintendo of America would reject the idea of this game coming to the US. Don't we exist too? So Nintendo of America would then have to make another idea for Super Mario Bros. 2 to be released in the Western market, but I'll get into that later. So what I'm going to look at first is the Super Mario Bros. 2 that Japanese gamers get in release of the Famicom. Now, since I don't have the original Famicom Disc System, I'm going to be emulating my time with these. Now, you may think I can easily record it on the Wii's Virtual Console or even modern hardware like the Nintendo Switch. Now, it's only for video quality purposes, like playing on old TVs in the 80s, 90s and early 2000s. But also at the same time, even on modern hardware, also have like save state features that you can have if you're getting stuck on certain areas that you find the game too hard. But even if we're at a point where a younger generation of gamers have to experience what older gamers like myself went through when they're not playing such as games like Fortnite and Minecraft, so boot up the emulator I do. So here we are, Super Mario Bros. 2. Now, I mentioned that this game is unlockable for the Super Mario Bros. Deluxe port, and that's where Western players can get their first experience with this game. The strangest part is when Nintendo released Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo, as it contains Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, 3, and the fourth game named Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, and it plays like the first Super Mario Bros., only it's more difficult. But this compilation contains a save feature in case you get a game over if you're stuck in certain levels. So people were wondering whatever happened to the original version of the game. It wasn't until 2007 when Nintendo finally released this game on the Nintendo Wii's Virtual Console, so that international players can finally experience of what the original game and its frustration. Oh, we'll get there. Now the story here is, well, it's pretty much the first game again, but they changed it slightly as it takes place in a parallel universe, and not much else was said after that. Now, the difference I can talk about here is that on the startup screen is that you can play as either Mario or Luigi. Now, they both have different attributes. So Mario plays exactly the same as he did in the last game, so not much for me to say here. And finally we have Luigi. Now, Luigi is either I like and I don't like. Well, first off, Luigi has a higher jump, which makes platforming a bit more comfortable. Now, you're wondering why I'm a little hesitant saying this? It's because the part I don't like about Luigi is that his traction is terrible. So this is the first game where Luigi has a case of having bar under his feet. So overall, Luigi can be quite unique in his own way of how you go about playing this game, whether it's easier or harder, and it's so weird to say. But I still prefer playing Mario overall since I'm more familiar with him. Now, before getting into the actual game, I think the looks are better than the previous game. It's not much, I know, but there are a few glaring things I've noticed. First up, the ground looks like actual dirt instead of a few stack of blocks on the floor. The actual text has a shadow underneath, making them easier to see. Even the clouds in this game actually has eyes, making the world feel more alive. The music, unfortunately, was kept untouched. You won't find another track that you never even heard of before, despite it being a sequel, but I still like it as before. So not much to say here. Now to the actual game, it plays like the original Super Mario Bros. I mean, there's 8 worlds to go through, 4 levels in each world, collecting power-ups to play through enemies in each levels, conquer the castle in each world, listening to Toad that the princess is in another castle, and finally the princess from the clutches of Bowser at the end of the game. So not much to say on that front, but that's not the whole package as I'm about to unfold. First, there's no new power-ups to speak of, so as before you have the mushroom to make you big, the fire flower, and the star man that work just as it did last time. Though there is a new poison mushroom, which isn't a power-up, but it's more of an obstacle in your way and it behaves like an enemy, so don't touch it. We also have different variations of old enemies, like red piranha plants that behaves much more aggressive than the green ones. Also we have flying bloopers. How are you doing that? Are the developers high when they're making this? But I'm going to get into the real meat of this game of why this never gets an international release back then, and it's its overall difficulty. Now, the original game feels fair in terms of its overall challenge as you get through into the game, but this feels like a follow-up as you go through World 9 to 16. That's what it feels like! Now, is it more enemy placement? A bit more obstacles? Well, it's that and then some. My god, the amount of unfair challenge in this game is absolutely insane! First off is that they introduced the wind gimmick, which is like how you think it is, combining with enemy and obstacle placement I mentioned earlier, and hell, sometimes you don't know when the wind will start up or finish just to fuck up your jumps or your ground positioning. Next is that not all levels are as straightforward as the last game. Some levels require you to find another way to get by in the level, and that involves finding invisible blocks. Now, invisible blocks are a thing in the last game, but that's more piquing my curiosity in case there's a hidden vine to get to the bonus level, or even power-ups I can find. Here, you have to stop what you're doing and find an invisible block to proceed with the level, which I don't think the game is designed in mind. Now, it may not sound that bad, but when you're in a situation where you're in between enemies or small sections of the level, you have to either get lucky to find them in your first try, or do very well to find them fast considering you're under a time limit. Lastly, the mother of all problems is its leap of faith bullshit. Now, you have a point in the level where you need to make a long jump to make the other side, meaning you get to the other side and hope that the flying Koopa Trooper be right on the height you want to bounce off to, or you fall into your death. Not only that, One of the last levels has you have to have it open a block to proceed with the rest of the level when there's a bottomless pit below it. Dick move! Now, this game does have a continue feature where you get a game over, but you start at the beginning of the world you died in, so that means you have to play through the frustrating level you played before to get back to the level you died in, most likely to have one life to spare to die, then die in that level you worked so hard to get back to, and then get a game over on that level you died in to then go all the way back to the first world level again. Just no. But in the Super Mario All-Stars version, when you get a game over, you actually start at the beginning of the actual level you died in, rather than starting from the actual world. Now that's more fair. Now after you beat the game, you get access to World 9, which is not a mandatory thing to do, by the way. If you die, the game just straight up ends. But you get access to Worlds A to D for more post-game stuff. The catch is, you got to beat this game not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, oh it doesn't stop there, not even 7, but 8 fucking times in one setting. While playing through this game's problems, so that's an easy no thanks. However, if you're playing the All-Stars version, you only play through the game once, and that's it. You're in World A to D. So overall, while the game has the same qualities as the first game, but its problems overshadow for me recommending it to you guys. And there are reasons why this game was never released everywhere else. But I think now in the world we live in, such as emulating and save states, even released on Nintendo Switch. But if you want to play this game for sheer curiosity, then go for it. But the version I do recommend is the Super Mario All-Stars port, where it has a save feature, so it's more forgiving that way. Now I'm not calling Lost Levels a bad game, but I just don't think it's a game where you can get your first impression of the series. Now that I look at the version of Super Mario Bros. 2 what the Western gamers didn't get, but what other version do we end up getting? Well, simply put, they went through Japanese games that Western audience never played, and turn it into a Mario game. But let's run it back so we can get a clear idea. Here's a game only released in Japan called Doki Doki Panic. Based on the Yumi Kojo mascots from Fuji Television, where it takes place inside a storybook where it tells a dream world called Mu. And they invented a dream machine so that people can have good dreams based on the quality of the weather. But a giant toad-like creature named Mamu wants to use the dream machine for himself and create monsters out of it. So the book found in the hands of a pet monkey named Rusa, and then gives it to two young twins named Pokey and Peaky. While reading a bit further, the twins quarrel and manages to rip the last page, causing the ending to be erased. So Mamu manages to reach the twins and kidnaps them into the book. So Rusa asks for the help of the twins' parents named Mama and Papa, then their brother Imagine and his girlfriend Lena. So they all jump into the book to save the twins and save the world of Mu from Mamu. So each of the 4 characters have different attributes during the game, and you can play all 4 of them through the same levels in their own playthrough. You have Imagine, that's more balance of the 4, Mama, that has a higher and floaty jump, Lena, that can hover in the air for a couple of seconds, but lacking strength, and Papa, who is the strongest and fastest out of the 4. So Nintendo of America have decided to take the concept of Doki Doki Panic and replace it as a Mario game. So instead of controlling the 4 family members, they have been replaced with different characters such as Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, or Toadstool as she's called back then, and finally Toad. So 4 of them replace the family's moveset. Mario has Imagine's attributes, Luigi with Mama's, Peach with Lena, and Toad with Papa's. So then Nintendo of America then slapped the name Super Mario Bros. 2, then release it in the Western market in the United States in 1998, and in Europe in early 1989. Then in 1992, Japan have their own version of Super Mario Bros. 2 named Super Mario USA. Don't European exist too? But I am curious though to Japanese gamers out there that grew up in the mid-80s and early 90s, played Doki Doki Panic, and then a couple of years later bought Super Mario USA and find out they bought another version of Doki Doki Panic. I would honestly love to know. So this game also has a few changes with a few graphical details and also plot. Mario found himself in a dream where he found a long staircase to find a mysterious door that leads to the dream world not called Mu, but called Subcon, and has been ruled by not Bowser, but a giant toad known as not Mamu, but now named Wart. So then Mario wakes up the next day and then taking a picnic with Luigi, Peach and Toad. While on the way, Mario tells them about what happened to him in his dream, and it turns out they all have the same dream. While arriving, they found a strange cave that contains a staircase that's the same as their dream. Then they found the door that opens to find themselves back into Subcon. So now the game are on a quest to save Subcon and defeat the evil Wart. Getting into the actual game, and I have to say right off the bat, this plays nothing like a Mario game. Now this is not a bad thing first and foremost, as long as the game is in question is at least fun and interesting to play. First off, you can't jump on enemies to kill them, but you can stand on top of them without getting harmed. So to kill enemies you have to pick up objects or even certain enemies, then throw the item in question in order to take them out. Even though this concept raised a few eyebrows, but it can be satisfying when you're accurate with it, even when you combo them. You can also pick up power blocks right out of the original Mario Bros. Arcade. And as you throw it, it kills almost every enemy on the screen, which can come in handy. So unlike the last game, there are no power-ups of any kind, so no Fire Flower in this game. You have a health bar, and once you take a hit you turn small. But you can turn big again by collecting hearts when you take out a certain amount of enemies. You can get an extra health bar when you collect a mushroom in the hidden world in the level where you can find a potion from the floor to form into a door. You can also collect coins in this world that when you beat the level for a chance to get an extra life. Though I think this is the most luck-based minigame ever, I swear to God. You also have a stopwatch that can freeze time around you for a certain amount of time. Now the Starman is actually in this game. You just have to collect 5 of these floating cherries and then a Starman will appear slowly from the bottom of the screen. Then you collect it and it works exactly how it did in the last game. Now it may sound boring with all the lack of power-ups to go about in this game. That may be true, but I think with 4 playable characters makes up from getting too stale. First off, aesthetically, every world in this game has a different theme to them and have their own gimmicks. Even different characters make these levels a total breeze, like Peach's floating ability that can be good pick for first time players, with the catch being is that she can't pick up items as fast as the rest of them. Speaking of different characters, I should talk about them. Mario is very natural than everyone else as expected. Luigi can be a bit problematic. He can be useful to reach higher places that you can't reach. But because of his jump, it can be a problem where you land because of enemies shooting projectiles or even enemies moving fast. Peach I already mentioned earlier, and finally Toad, who is faster and stronger than everyone else, but he can't jump as high as everyone else. But he makes for a great offensive option, especially boss fights. Speaking of bosses, at the end of most levels you face one of these bird-like creatures named Birdo, that come in different colour variations, like pink ones that shoots nothing but eggs so you can chuck back at them. I hope there weren't babies inside these. Then you have red ones that shoot out eggs and fireballs, so you need to watch out for that. And then you get grey ones that shoots nothing but fireballs, so you do need to be more careful about that. Then at the end of each world you face one of the major bosses of that world, such as Mouser, which you face twice as he throws bombs, then you have to toss them back at him. Then we have Triclide, a 3-headed snake that rapidly shoots fireballs and then you need to avoid. So you need to grab these mushroom blocks in order to hit it, and again, you do fight him twice. After that we have Fry Guy, who is this giant fireball. Once you do enough damage to it, he then separates himself and becomes smaller variation, that's also faster than normal one, and become more of a pain in the arse to hit. Hold still, you little fucker! Shit! Anyway, next is Claw Grip, a giant enemy crab that throws rocks at you, which you can grab and throw back at him. I actually find it funny that there's a mistypo in the credits where his name is Clawgrip. It's like someone had a slur moment. Also, fun fact that Clawgrip isn't actually in the original Doki Doki Panic, but instead you fight Mouser the third time. So overall, the bosses are okay. They're nothing really special when you only have one strategy by throwing shit back at them, as the only thing that can get to you is patience. Now, there are 7 worlds in this game with 3 levels to go through, and most of these are actually not that bad when you travel through horizontal level design, avoiding enemies such as variations of Shy Guys that just walks in a straight line, the one that shoots, and the ones that rides ostriches. Though to be honest, none of the ground enemies are nothing special in terms of having counter defense, like Porcubos, Panzers, Flurries, Tweeters, Pokies, Ninjas that can only jump up and down, and finally the new traditional enemies of the series, Bob-Bombs, that explode if you pick them up underground. But first introduced in this game is vertical level design that requires climbing up to the top, and this is where the game gets a bit challenging, where it involves vine climbing with hoopsters that keeps you on your toes. The most annoying part of the vertical level design is that it involves sparks, which will harm you no matter where you land on top of them, and they can be annoying when you try so hard not to touch them once you get their pattern down. The second last level takes the cake, where you have to pick up these mushroom blocks to create an extra step to get to the top, but the problem is, these assholes move so fast most of the time, I can hardly get the timing right to get past this. Lastly, the most monotonous part is where you have to dig through tons of sand to proceed. It requires you mashing the grab button, and it does make your thumb hurt after a while. It's recommended that you pick Toad for these situations, but for Peach, it's a real drag. The main purpose of digging through this shit is to get to the room that contains a key to unlock a door to access the next area, and also guarded by Phanto that comes alive as soon as you pick it up. Though if you throw it away, it then stops chasing you until you pick it up again, which is pretty funny when you think about it. Now, you have 3 lives in this game, and unlike the first game, you actually have continues this time around, but only 2. And you only continue off of the beginning of the world you died in and not the actual level, just like the previous game. But I find it stupid considering the original game and lost levels get unlimited tries, but it's still replaying the beginning of the world you died in is still stupid. Other games that came out at that time, such as Castlevania and Mega Man, that came out at the time of unlimited continues, so why couldn't this have these as well? Anyway, like the previous games, there are warp zones in this game where you can get to the world you died in when you get a game over. By getting a potion you find in the ground, go to the inverted world and then take the pipe to take you to a different world. Though I recommend you have a guide on standby, because not like the original Super Mario Bros. Where you choose the world you want to go to. Now, after conquering through 7 worlds, we're at the final stretch. First you take care of Birdo guarding a key to get to the final area of the game, then get chased by Phanto again, you unlock the door to the next room, collect this shiny ball to get through with Bird's mouth. But wait, it moves and oh shit! Yeah, that did catch me off guard the first time. Oh, don't act like you never did. Anyway, you also fight this bird head, which takes only 3 hits. So then you walk into its mouth and then face off Wart, who just stands out of your reach and shoots bubbles. Bubbles. But you can fight back, as this machine in the background spawn out a bunch of vegetables out, and then throw it back in his mouth when he opens. It's actually not that bad of a fight once you get the pattern down, he's really no problem. So with Wart taken care of, the game then saves the people of Subcon, celebrated their victory, then did something to Wart, and after all that, it turns out it was all just a dream. Seriously? Is this game telling me that I just wasted my fucking time? Man, I wish this whole review was a whole dream. But regardless, Super Mario Bros. 2 I don't think is really anything special and not worth the follow-up to the original Super Mario Bros. Now this game does have its qualities, like having 4 playable characters, some levels have some interesting set pieces like taking a magic carpet to proceed through the levels, and some bosses are okay, but everything else is about as basic as you can get. Well, the game does look nice though, better than the original game, so it does not look samey. Now, this game does have its share of re-releases, like the Super Mario All-Stars version on the Super Nintendo, obviously giving this game a bit of a 16-bit makeover, and also a save feature. But the most significant re-releases of all of them is the Game Boy Advance port in Super Mario Advance, which looks a lot more vibrant than the All-Stars port, like everything's more expressive. This version also gives us an extra boss fight at the end of the third world where you fight this giant Birdo robot, and it shoots out giant eggs, which is no different from Birdo's actual eggs. And this game also gives us voice acting, for better or worse.
I'm gonna finish you off! Here, have some fun! Stand up, if you're ready to get toasted. Here I go!
Yeah, that can get pretty annoying. But this game does suffer from other GBA ports with screen crunching that you couldn't see coming from behind, in front, above or below you. So overall, like my opinion on Super Mario Bros. Deluxe on the Game Boy, this port is for better and worse. It has some nice bells and whistles like giving it extra content and pretty to look at, but the problems are more glaring, like my problems with the original game and screen crunching. So overall though, the original was claimed to be not that bad, but for me, I just don't see the appeal. So I played two variants of Super Mario Bros. 2, and I don't think either of those lived up to the worthy of the sequel to the first game. Now, I'm not calling these bad games, I just think they both have the problems that overshadowed what made the original game great. But next time we're going to look at that game that actually did hit those heights of the original Super Mario Bros. And absolutely claims to be one of the best games of all time. That is extremely high claims, but next time we're going to look at Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES. That is actually all gamers all around the world did get. And I'm actually looking forward to it since I never actually played and beaten this game, so hell of an experience, so catch you next time. So hit like, comment, subscribe, and actually share this video with your friends or any of your closest friends out there or whatever. So hope this isn't all a dream after all this.